But the fact of the matter is these are the same consultants that are bringing you Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan. They are the same people who are bringing you other candidates that are not vetted because they think that if you are online and you are popular online, that you are going to win people. Right. And it is disgusting and gross. This person was bad from the beginning. I have said it for months. He has no business being in the Senate. He has no business being on a campaign. And the fact that the Democratic Party stood with him after the first allegations and the men of the Democratic Party stood with him is disgusting. And the women are the only ones that stood up to him.
Something here. Abdul El-Sayed is not facing any kind of allegation of sexual abuse.
And he's an unvetted, untested candidate.
You just heard Democratic strategist and former Biden administration official Megan Hayes insinuate that Michigan Senate candidate Dr. Abdul El-Sayed may also have some very serious allegations against him that we don't yet know about, since he, like Graham Platner, wasn't sufficiently vetted in her opinion. Now, as you heard, she also implied that the same could be true for other leftist candidates as well. Now, of course, she doesn't apply that same exact logic to Democrats ideologically aligned with Eric Swalwell. See, Swalwell, being an alleged rapist, says nothing about corporate Democrats because he's just one person. But Graham Platner, being an alleged rapist, is a warning sign about all leftist candidates running across the country. If one's guilty, then they're all guilty, according to her. But it's a necessary double standard for her because in her mind, she doesn't view leftists as Democrats, so they're inherently untrustworthy. In fact, she ran to Fox News a couple of weeks ago to call for them to be stopped after three Mamdani-backed candidates swept in New York.
Folks need to stand up or they will take over. And again, not Democrats.
So this tells you everything you need to know about this individual. But she's not alone. Neera Tanden implied that since El-Sayed and Platner have some of the same political advisors, quote, maybe he will be next, which means that I guess El-Sayed is also a sexual predator because they have the same political advisors. Brilliant logic there. Now, they're saying this defamatory shit because she, like many other corporate Democrats right now, are trying to scare Democratic Party voters back into compliance. Scare them into voting against the socialist candidates because even if they might agree with them more on policy, see, according to her, they're less electable than the corporate Democrats who've been properly vetted, because we know how well the establishment is at vetting corporate Democrats. But she's obviously trying to weaponize Platner against every other leftist candidate to blunt momentum of the broader movement. But here's the problem with that strategy. As depraved and disgusting and defamatory as it was for her to do that, to say that there's a possibility that Abdul El-Sayed is as guilty as Graham Platner, that right there speaks to her fucking desperation. See, they're grasping at anything to stop the left, but Platner's criminality, which many of us did see coming, by the way, isn't going to change the underlying conditions that led to his rise in the first place. Graham Platner is a piece of shit, yes, and he should be in prison right now, but his campaign never would have caught on had it not been for the ideas that he was espousing. That's what people care most about in the Democratic Party's base. Like everywhere else in the country, Democratic voters are opting for candidates who are actually going to fight fascists and support progressive policies like Medicare for All and abolishing ICE and stopping the genocide. And that progressive fervor isn't going to die with Graham Platner's sorry-ass campaign. And that's not my opinion. It's not a vibes-based assessment. That's cold, hard data that shows that.
You have to go back 16 years. Remember, it was that Republican Tea Party wave of 2010. I would argue the Democratic version of it is a new Tea Party, but it's on steroids. Why do I say that? Well, let's just start off with the fact, approve of their own party in Congress. Republicans in July of 2010, it was 52%, a very low percentage, but at least it was north of 50%. Look at where we are now with Democrats in terms of them approving their own members of Congress. It's actually below 50%. Democrats dislike their party more than Republicans did during the Tea Party wave of 2010. Just 47% of Democrats now approve of their own party in Congress. As I said, it's a new Tea Party, but it's a Tea Party on steroids.
And we're seeing the impact it's having on some Democratic incumbents.
Absolutely the case. You know, if you look at the number of Democratic incumbents, House incumbents who have gone down to defeat, it's actually higher in the House than it was back in 2010. House incumbents who lost primaries for Republicans back in 2010, it was 1, 2. You can count it on one hand. But in 2026 so far, it's already 5. It's already 5. You have to use up all the digits on your one hand. It's 5 so far. If, in fact, 6 House Democrats went down to defeat in 2026, it would be by far, it would be the largest number, in a post-redistricting cycle for Democrats. And get this, over 50 years. That's why I got this picture of the Tea Party on your screen right now, because you know what? It's 250, but also it's a new Tea Party for Democrats.
I was just in Boston. I saw where this all took place. All right, when we're talking about some of the specific races where incumbents might be in trouble?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of races where they might be in trouble. How about Missouri 1, right? There's a possibility. How about in Michigan 13? That's a real possibility in terms of a House Democrat going down to defeat. And then in Connecticut 1 as well, another real possibility. And this is just what we've been seeing over and over and over again.
Now, all of this is happening for a reason, obviously. Democratic Party voters, they saw how the establishment's fecklessness paved the way for fascism to take hold in the first place. And now that it's here, they're seeing that the people who failed us are simply not doing enough to fight fascism after warning us about how bad fascism would be. And the portion of the party who actually wants to stop fascists and not collaborate with them are the leftists. It's the socialists. It's the progressives. The base sees this, and they're opting for candidates who are actually hungry for change, who realize that you can't go back to the same milquetoast neoliberalism that led to Donald Trump's rise in the first place if you ever want to fix this country. And they understand that we need people who are actually going to get in and fix the fucking country once and for all before a different con man comes along and before Republicans can find a different scapegoat to blame for all of our problems after people start to realize that things are still bad after you purge the country of immigrants and take away all of the trans rights that people had. Voters, they don't want more useless platitudes, and that is why what Democrats are saying to stop the left is not working. All of the socialists are beating the conservative Democrats because the former is offering concrete policies and the latter is offering fuck all. And that's what people like Meghan Hayes fail to realize. The repeated failures of her party created the fertile ground that socialism needed to grow, because nobody would even be seeking out alternatives to capitalism in the first place if capitalism was working. And what's funny is that the fascists, who these kinds of corporate Democrats often like to collaborate with, are just as desperate to stop socialists. But they also don't know where to even begin. Take Mike Rogers, for example, who's the Republican Senate candidate in Michigan that Abdul El-Sayed will likely face if he wins the primary. He doesn't even have a policy platform. If you go to his website, I shit you not, he has just one page about housing, and that's really it. The question is, if you don't have a policy platform, how are you competing with somebody with a robust progressive platform who's championing Medicare for all and worker rights? Well, his pitch to Michigan voters is basically that he's an alpha male and a Chad, and Abdul El-Sayed is a gay beta male. And I really don't think that that's being too uncharitable. His team actually took the time to Photoshop muscles onto him and removed his gut to make him look like a Giga Chad. And they also released an AI-generated video of Abdul dancing really effeminately to suggest, I guess, that he's like gay or a pussy or something. Because who needs healthcare if the person who wants to give it to you might be gay, right? I'd rather have no healthcare than get it from a fairy. I guess that's the bet that he's making. But to be fair, that's not the only line of attack against Abdul El-Sayed. They're also pointing out how he's a scary Muslim because, of course, and they're calling him a communist too because all Democrats are communists, according to Republicans. And if you ask them to define what that means, they can't do it. Just know that it's very, very scary. Now, of course, they're also accusing him of anti-Semitism because, as everyone knows, you're anti-Semitic if you don't think that Israel should be allowed to slaughter thousands of children and invade all of their neighbors. You have to let them do that, otherwise you're anti-Semitic. And it's not just Republicans, to be clear, making these claims. It's Democrats as well, like John Fetterman, who's calling El-Sayed anti-Semitic for daring to point out that his Democratic opponent, Haley Stevens, is receiving millions of dollars in bribes from the Israel lobby. See, you're supposed to pretend like that's not happening, otherwise you're anti-Semitic. It's okay to condemn foreign lobbying from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Nobody called us Islamophobic when we called on Trump to end our complicity with Saudi Arabia's genocide of Yemen in 2018. Nobody called us Islamophobic when we called for the U.S. to stop giving military support to the UAE, who was funding the RSF, which is the group committing a genocide in Sudan. But if you point out how candidates are bought by this one specific foreign government in particular, Israel, well, then you're anti-Semitic. See, maybe this contradictory line of thinking and attack would have worked in 2023 or 2024, but it's 2026. And a large number of Jewish Americans and most Jewish Democrats, they do think it's a genocide. And they also favor Mamdani, a scary Muslim and supposed anti-Semite, over Netanyahu by a massive margin. So suffice it to say, that line of attack isn't going to land these days, especially in the Democratic Party, but this is probably going to be their main line of attack against Abdul and other leftist socialist candidates, along with red baiting, of course, because what else do they have? Like, who's going to find it appealing if your only message is, hey, healthcare bad, genocide good? Who's going to find that message appealing or inspirational? See, they're flailing. They have nothing. And they're desperate. All of these things that we're seeing, their shitty attacks, it is a sign of their desperation. And I love it. You can smell the fear on them. But here's the thing. Much like with the Democratic establishment, the Republican establishment isn't going to change the underlying conditions that caused their popularity to drop in the first place, too. They're doubling down on more of the same. And at a time when Donald Trump cannot stop fucking up the country and the world, more Americans are going to start to yearn for the polar opposite of fascism, which is socialism. Trump's ceasefire with Iran has already fallen apart, and we're back to bombing Iran again, and he's even contemplating an invasion of Karg Island because losing the war to them once wasn't enough. He wants to lose twice. He's also destroyed our relationships with allies. The Wall Street Journal released a report about the rupture Trump caused with our European allies, and it details how France was actually preparing for a military confrontation with us in the event we tried to invade Greenland. Now, south of the border, Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, is preparing to take legal action against the United States after Trump's ICE Gestapo shot and killed 52-year-old Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, a Mexican national who's lived in the United States for 30 years. And they're claiming that they had no choice but to shoot and kill him because he tried to ram them with his vehicle when they tried to apprehend him. But nobody, and I mean nobody, is buying that story because every single thing that they say is a lie. And it's the same exact thing that they said about Renee Good, even though we saw the video, and she very clearly did not try to ram that ICE Nazi. So Mexico has no choice but to take legal action because it's not okay for their citizens to be killed, likely in cold blood, in a neighboring country. That is unacceptable. So we are destroying our reputation. And listen, we can talk all day about the ways that this regime is fucking up the country and the world, but it wouldn't be enough. We need weeks to talk about all of the things that they have done to destroy everything. Like any little progress we've made towards climate change, just towards public health, it's just gone now. Millions have lost healthcare. Hundreds of thousands have lost their SNAP benefits. Thousands in the Middle East and hundreds in Latin America have been killed due to U.S. imperialism. Millions in the global south are going to die due to USAID cuts. Blue states who pay more into the federal government than red states aren't even getting their disaster aid because Trump is a petty piece of shit. His health secretary destroyed public health and is recommending a 25% cut to Social Security benefits that we paid into because, God forbid, you lift the cap and you tax rich people the same rate as the rest of us. Everything his regime does is harmful and unpopular, and that's not going to change anytime soon, which is why Republicans are shitting their pants behind the scenes about the midterms because they know that they're not going to be replaced by a bunch of limp-dicked corporate Democrats who will be just as unpopular as they are now in a couple of years. They're going to have to compete with socialists who have an actual vision for the country, and that is their worst fucking nightmare. Because much like corporate Democrats, they know their desperate smears and platitudes aren't going to land. And that's why you see so much camaraderie between the fascists and the corporate Democrats, because they both oppose socialists. They hate each other less than socialists. It's why the corporate Democrats are running to Fox News to complain about the socialists, because we threaten the very status quo that gave them the power and wealth that they're trying to protect. So in their minds, Graham Platner offered them a sort of lifeline. Hey, this dude's a piece of shit. So this is a warning about communism and socialism and leftism more broadly. We're the safe bet. They're the risky bet. But it was never about Graham Platner. It was about the ideas that he pretended to care about. And you can kill a campaign, and I'm glad that that campaign was killed, but you can't kill the ideas that made that campaign possible in the first place. So as gross as it is to see these degenerate cretins imply that Abdul El-Sayed is the next Graham Platner, just know that the sheer desperation and depravity of their attacks on El-Sayed and other leftists is a sign of their desperation, because they know it's coming and they have no idea how to stop it. They are powerless to stop it, and they're flailing, and I love every fucking second of it.
When you acting like a baby.